Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chant coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Sunday, December 19th, 2021. If you ever like additional weather information, you can find it at weather.gov/Alaska. There's all sorts of information there as it pertains to Alaska region and National Weather Service forecast products, warnings, and advisories. Well, let's look at the weather headlines, and we've seen the snow and a light mix of precipitation spreading eastward across the central into the eastern interior today. Already worked its way through the west, and in fact some areas there, Seward Peninsula, southward into the southwest portions of the state have seen rain, or at least a light mix of some rain. A little bit of freezing drizzle or freezing rain at least earlier before temperatures rose above freezing. And this overall progressive pattern is going to continue through the end of December, though there is going to be a little shot of colder air slide in southeastward along the north slope, east half of the Brooks Range, down along east central areas, the Elkhorn border, and then settle there over the Panhandle, the coldest air there on the December 23rd. Overall, you're going to find the warmest air at times over the southwest portion of the state, the YK deltas on up into the lower Yukon, Kuskokwim River basins, the Alaska Peninsula, and the Aleutians. And looking at some of the webcams this afternoon, Koyuk was up to 33 degrees before 2 p.m. with light rain and fog and a temperature at 33. Further east inland at Esther Dome, which is there near Fairbanks, had moderate snow and fog, and Fairbanks area reports at least 3 inches of snow has fallen through about 3:30, 4 o'clock this afternoon, with more on the way where winter storm warning is in effect. And then looking further south and west, Dutch Harbor, 2 days in a row now with temperatures up near 50, some breaks in the cloud cover, so very mild there. And then over in the Panhandle near Juneau, Pedersen Hill, only 21 degrees, but look at that brilliant bright blue sky. We have an area of high pressure I was telling you about that was going to strengthen over the lower Yukon, northwest Canada down into British Columbia, and that's providing colder, dry air coming in on northerly and northeasterly winds, so therefore the clear skies, colder temperatures. But here is the current warnings and advisories. Widespread areas, yellow winter weather advisories and red winter storm warnings. The winter storm warnings in the west will be coming down this evening into the overnight, and the primary area now of heaviest precipitation is the central areas, Tanana, Bettles on over toward Fairbanks, and that's where we have periods of moderate snow that could even mix with a little bit of freezing drizzle as we get especially into the day on Monday. Another little area that's popped up is around Anchorage, and this includes the Matanuska Valley, Wasilla, Palmer, down into the Anchorage Bowl. Could pick up anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow, locally higher amounts in excess of 10 inches, especially the eastern hills of Anchorage, as we go through the Monday into Monday evening. And then also down there in the western portion of the Kenai Peninsula, areas Cooper Landing westward through Sterling, Soldotna, and Kenai could pick up 1 to 4 inches of snow Monday into Monday evening. Now looking at the precipitation forecast, heaviest snow on Monday is going to be along and just west of the Alaska Range, on up toward Fairbanks. And by the time we get into Tuesday there on the right side of your screen, you see the precipitation really winding down across the interior with still some pockets of snow showers there along the Alaska Range. Another reminder, winter solstice is coming up on Tuesday just before 7 a.m. That's 6:59. That's the point where we have reached, the sun has had its furthest south retreat, and will gradually begin to add some daylight here coming up here as we head through the end of December. In January, very slow process though, but it's the shortest amount of daylight we see during the year on Tuesday, December 21st. And another thing, nacreous clouds, polar stratospheric cloud season is underway. They're very beautiful. They are the second highest clouds in the atmosphere, the first being noctilucent clouds, which occur way up there, like around 60 miles above the Earth's surface. These are some 9 to 16 miles above the Earth's surface and form at temperatures near 80 degrees centigrade below zero. That's like around 110 below Fahrenheit. And the best time to look for them is in the wintertime, in the hours, a couple hours before dawn or a couple of hours after sunset. And they have this very iridescent look, like mother of pearl. That's why they're called mother of pearl clouds. If you ever look at an abalone shell, have that same mother of pearl effect. So keep an eye out for those. But otherwise, satellite imagery shows the moisture there spreading through the interior up through the northwest, trailing front back through the Aleutians. And the system is losing some steam, but still going to produce some moderate to locally heavier snow overnight through the central and eastern Yukon valleys. Here's that front working its way eastward. And by the time we get into the day on Monday, that front's just going to kind of weaken and wrap up, hang up there along the Alaska Range. Another little impulse is going to enhance the snow, Matanuska valleys down through the Anchorage Bowl and the western Kenai, where several inches of snow could fall from Monday morning through late Monday evening. And then back out to the west, we see another system, another pretty strong load, 965 millibars there toward the western Aleutians, with a warm front lifting northward through the central Aleutians. That'll be the next weather system we'll be keeping an eye on for midweek. But otherwise, cold temperatures could be in the single digits there around Haines, Skagway, in the teens across many of the inner channels there of the Panhandle, back to the further west, 7 below at Glen Allen, Copper River Basin, but still temperatures near or above freezing as you get out toward the Alaska Peninsula and on the other side of the Alaska Range. Monday afternoon highs should get up into the 20s across most areas, with some readings above freezing as you get out toward Homer, and maybe even a 40-degree reading up there to Kodiak, as well as you get around and southwest of King Salmon. And then for Tuesday morning lows, starting to cool down there out toward the Alaska Range. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon will be a bit cooler, especially Talkeetna there, the Copper River Basin, though they may come up a little bit there across the Panhandle, back up closer to or a bit above the freezing mark. Now, looking at the northern areas of the state, central and northern areas, lows are not nearly as cold as what they've been, generally above zero. And we'll see some temperatures creeping upward there, Galena on up toward near Tanana even, near freezing overnight as that milder air works its way east-northeastward. High temperatures Monday afternoon, even around Fairbanks, could get up near freezing, and areas further west of there above freezing. So there could be a little drizzle or freezing drizzle mixing in with the precipitation as it tends to wind down. And then come Tuesday morning, notice the colder temperatures coming in there across the northwest coast. That is a sign of some colder air that it's going to be heading southeaster that I was telling you about. So that'll be overspreading the north slope and especially eastern half of the Brooks Range on Tuesday. Notice temperatures come down quite a bit there. Highs below zero along the Arctic and northwest coast, single digits through the Brooks Range, and starting to spill into the middle and eastern Yukon Valley. So that warm-up was short-lived. Looking at Monday morning lows for the southwest interior as you go up the Yukon and Kuskokwim River basins there, the lower basins. We're looking at temperatures stopping near or even staying above freezing, like Bethel and Aniak. And then as we go out along the Alaska Peninsula, temperatures there also above freezing, even only near 40 for a low there at Dutch Harbor. And then temperatures Monday afternoon, we could see some 40s creeping up there along the middle and latter end of the Alaska Peninsula, up to maybe even 40-degree reading at Kodiak. And then for Tuesday morning, starts to turn colder there up there along the Yukon River, single digits returning, temperatures getting back below freezing as we start to get out across the Alaska Peninsula. And by Tuesday afternoon, temperatures only in the teens there, Emanak, and then as we get further down there through the interior, 20s, and still some 40s, though, showing up as you get out there through the eastern and central Aleutians. And looking at the temperature outlook for Christmas Day through the 29th, still the coldest air will be centered over the southeast part of the state, the Panhandle, with temperatures moderating again in that period. There'll be a couple of different warm-ups. There'll be one prior to Christmas and another one after Christmas, leading up to the new year, that will really impact the southwest part of the state and the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Could see some more temperatures above freezing, and in some areas even the 40s to near 50 again there, say at Dutch Harbor and Sand Points. And then precipitation should average below normal across the Gulf Coast, especially the Panhandle, whereas precipitation will likely again average a bit above normal through the central interior as you run up the Yukon River.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, moving along to your aviation weather, if you have a flight planned Monday into Tuesday, we've had a Bering frontal system work its way inland with a lot of moisture and warmer air. As a result, we continue to see areas of moderate to locally heavy snow that has spread eastward up through the Yukon Valley. That'll be the case into Monday morning with widespread IFR conditions, especially between the Alaska and Brooks Range, extending back through the southwest interior, as well as along the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And as we go into Monday afternoon, we'll continue to see IFR conditions, especially southeast side of the Brooks Range down through the Alaska Range into the Kenai and out through southwestern parts of the state. And then by Tuesday morning, there's going to be, during the day, Monday and early Tuesday, a triple point, very weak low develop out over the north central Gulf. So that's going to help push and pull some moisture back up into the Panhandle, causing IFR conditions there to redevelop the north half into the Yakutat and Copper River basins there around McCarthy. We'll also see another large area of IFR conditions out across the central and western Aleutians in response to the next system that will be pushing northeastward, and look for those IFR conditions to become widespread throughout the central lower Bering Sea into the much of the Aleutian chain, and also still some isolated IFR conditions there, pockets there out over the southern third of the Panhandle. So past conditions Monday, Anatuvik will see IFR conditions at least attempting to become MVFR. Generally speaking, Atigun should be socked in there with IFR conditions throughout the day Monday, as will Lake Clark and Merrill. Though as we round a little further north, look for Rainy Pass to start IFR, may briefly become MVFR. The best chance of MVFR conditions will be the east entrance. IFR conditions will remain, though, as you fly west of the west entrance. Windy Pass MVFR becoming IFR. And as we go east, Isabel will be MVFR throughout the day Monday, with IFR conditions to the west of that pass up through the central Alaska range. And then Metasta should be able to hold on to VFR conditions, but if you are flying further north of the north entrance, MVFR conditions, and eventually IFR as you get up toward the Yukon River. And further south and west, Tanita should see VFR conditions become MVFR, with generally widespread MVFR conditions from the west entrance further west. And then Portage Pass will see VFR conditions at least early Monday, but become IFR, so that will be shutting down. And Chilkoot and White should be able to hold on to one more day of VFR conditions on Monday. Looking at the surge of milder air that's come in off the Bering and up from the North Pacific, we see freezing levels now have risen across the west from 2 to as high as 8,000 feet as we get out there into the Alaska Peninsula, and upwards around 10,000 feet in the vicinity of Kodiak Island, with the surface freezing levels at least retreating northward along the west and southwest coast, whereas we see temperatures near freezing there across the Panhandle. And the best chance of icing is going to be between 3,000 feet and a flight level of 18,000 feet, because we're going to have some greater vertical development. There's deeper moisture there that has moved in across the central interior of the state, especially along and between the Alaska and Brooks Range. Now, looking at jet stream level winds, we have it at 30,000 feet, we have a jet core in excess of 140 knots, upwards to 160 knots from the southwest that has pushed into the southwest interior west of the Alaska Range, extending back out over the central Bering Sea, coming down to 9,000 feet. We can see a broad area of winds across the southern half of the state, generally between 45 and 60 knots out of the west-southwest, and then a push of stronger winds coming in off the Russian Arctic coast with a max there of 90 knots from out of the west-southwest. And then as we drop down to 3,000 feet, we see those winds, stronger winds, out there toward the lower Chukchi Sea, eastern Russia, as well as off of Kodiak Island and south of the central and western Aleutians. Greatest threat for turbulence on Monday will be along and south of the Brooks Range. Surface to 5,000 feet could see isolated severe turbulence, as well as the south side of Kodiak Island to just off of the Alaska Peninsula there on the North Pacific side between the surface and 4,000 feet. So that's your flight weather. If you are heading out, please have a safe flight and check the latest conditions and forecast.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the stratus starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES-17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES-S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and it's now time for our marine weather segment. Looking at the sea ice edge today, we have extensive sea ice along the west coast, southwest coast of the state. But with the recent milder weather and stronger winds associated with these frontal systems that have been moving through, it has caused the ice to shift and retreat more northward, about 10 to 15 miles. And so as a result, just be aware of any openings that may have occurred and things closing back up as things shift around. We have yet another system that'll be impacting the region as we go through midweek. But looking at along the panhandle for Monday, we have winds out of the north across the inner channels at 15 knots and waves a few feet. For along the Gulf Coast, winds will be out of the west-northwest, 10 to 15 knots, waves 5 to maybe as high as 7 feet. By Tuesday, though, low pressure takes shape over the eastern Gulf and strengthens a bit. We'll see southeast winds ahead of that in the lower inner canals from Petersburg down through Ketchikan. Southeast 25 knots, gust at 40 knots, waves around 5 feet. And up there along Lynn Canal, we could see northerly winds at 35 knots, gusting to 50 knots with 7-foot waves. And then along the Gulf Coast, southwest winds south of Sitka, 25 to 30 knots, waves 9 feet. They'll be more northerly from Gustavus through Yakutat westward, 30 to 35 knots, waves 8 to 10 feet. Calmer conditions on Monday. When we look at Prince William Sound, just variable winds, 10 knots, waves a couple of feet, and somewhat variable winds around the Kenai, 15 to maybe as high as 20 knots, and waves generally a couple of feet there at Cook Inlet. But with that low strengthening out over the eastern side of the Gulf on Tuesday, we're going to see some outflow winds picking up 45 knots there at the entrance of Cook Inlet, as well as there across the Prince William Sound. Winds will be northwesterly to 30 knots and waves maybe upwards to 5-6 feet. Winds will be generally out of the southwest across Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula on Monday, between 20 and 25 knots. Waves 8 to as high as 13 feet on the Gulf and North Pacific side, and 4 to as high as 10 feet there north of Cold Bay on the Bering side. Winds then on Tuesday become more northwesterly across the region, as high as 35 to 40 knots around Kodiak Island, 8-foot waves there in Shelikof Strait. And then back to the west, winds Out of the north-northwest at 15 knots, waves 3 to as high as 7 feet there, Cold Bay. And then for the Aleutian chain, kind of a mix of winds, 15 to 20 knots or so. Eastern Aleutians, waves from 12 to 16 feet on the North Pacific side, 8 to 10 feet on the Bering side. And then as we go into Tuesday, there'll be the next stronger area of low pressure in the far western Aleutians approaching there from the North Pacific. Winds will generally be out of the southeast, 25 to 35 knots across the eastern Aleutians, picking up to 40 to as high as 50 knots there at Kiska westward, where waves could build over 12 feet, especially from the, over 20 feet from the central and western Aleutians. And then along the west coast, ice in place, but some shifting around. Winds will be coming down more so by Tuesday. Winds southwesterly in the 20 to 30 knot range, and waves as high as 18 feet in the vicinity of St. Matthew. And then a little more variable winds, still westerly, 20-25 knots there south of St. Lawrence Island and the Norton Sound, but more easterly as you get from St. Matthew down to St. Paul and St. George, picking up out of the east at 30 to 35 knots and waves 8 to 9 feet. And then along the Arctic coast, winds will be a little mixed in the 20 to 25 knot range, but ice in place, so some shifting going on. And winds will be southwesterly along the northwest coast into the lower Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait at around 25 to 30 knots. And by Tuesday, winds will be more westerly there across the Arctic coast, especially east of Utqiagvik, 20 to 25 knots. And then generally look for southwest to west winds in the 25 to 30 knot range from Wainwright southward through Cape Lisburne on down through the Bering Strait and north of St. Lawrence Island. So that does it for the specific marine forecast, but we do have a frontal system working its way through the central interior overnight, bringing periods of moderate to heavy snow that could mix with a little freezing drizzle by Monday. And then that system just kind of wraps around and weakens there through the Alaska Range. Next weather system will be coming up through the western Bering with a warm front lifting through the eastern and central Aleutians. So everybody have a good night, and thanks for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.